As an early childhood professional, many times I am asked, so what exactly do you do? So here I will let you all know what I do when I'm working with our young students. So, um, we as early childhood educators are guided by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, the national organization um, that I belong to and many early childhood educators belong to. And they have a position statement and detailed information about what developmentally appropriate practice is. And we as educators to this for guidance on how to organize and set up our classrooms, how to interact with children, how to interact with their families, and how to bring joyful learning experiences to our young learners from birth to 8 years old, which is through the end of second grade, beginning of third grade. Developmentally appropriate practice is strengths based and play based. It We are intended to be intentional with everything we do with these young learners, so that every student, every child that enters into a classroom is able to meet challenging expectations that are specific to them. Within developmentally appropriate practice, there are three core considerations we must consider as a professional, and that is the first is commonality, and that is thinking about those common developmental trajectories for children. You will often at the doctor's office get asked about your children and how they are developing. We as professionals know about those trajectories and what is typically expected of children at different ages and stages. It In addition, we think about the individuality because there are those common trajectories. However, each individual child develops at their own rate, and they have their own unique strengths. They have their own families, their own communities that they're living in. So we must consider those individuals, the individuality of each child. Underpinning all of the core considerations is context. We as educators must look at our context. Where have we come from? What are our beliefs? And how does that influence what we believe about the students and families entering our classroom? We also, as professionals, must consider the context that our children come from. What are their families? What are the languages spoken? What is their culture? What is the community culture that I live in? What is the community of our school or our child care center? All of that underpins how we meet the needs of the children that enter in our classroom to ensure that we are looking for their strengths, that we are intentional, and that we are joyful in all interactions in our classroom. A little bit more about the context of developmentally appropriate practices. So we do look at the social, the cultural, and the linguistic context. Are there other languages spoken? What cultures can we integrate into our classroom and have families come in and share with us about? An important piece of being a professional is also thinking about the research. And Vygotsky is a psychologist who developed the theory of zone of proximal development. And that is where you think about what you already know. You don't need to keep learning it. What can we do with just a little bit of assistance? And then what is not yet known that would be a frustrational level? Our goal as early childhood educators and professionals is to sit within the ZPD, the zone of proximal development. What can be done with a little bit of help and assistance? That is where we should be sitting our whole lives with young children, individually supporting their needs to take that one little step forward to grow. The context of our of our classroom, of our lives, influence the routines that we set, the environment that we set up, which materials are we going to include, what interactions. We are developing agency, having students understand that they can make choices, that they are strong and powerful beings. We are developing their executive function, their ability to learn and make good decisions, and most importantly, starting with that self-regulation. Um, Play is a very important part of developmentally appropriate practices. There are three big areas of play, and that's free play, where we just go and play. There's no learning goals happening, and you just are having a fabulous time. It's very directed. And then there are games, and those are often teacher selected, student driven, and there often are learning goals that go with games, and that is play. And then the most impactful, according to research, type of play is purposeful guided play. And when you think about that upper range of a developmentally appropriate practice in early childhood, in that first and second grades, often you'll hear, "Oh, they don't need play anymore. They're in big school now. We just need to get down and meet those academic needs and meet those standards." However, research does show that by having thoughtful, intentional educators and professionals planning and implementing strategies in the classroom through purposeful and guided play, then the social emotional skills are met for the students so that they are able to gain those academic skills and be highly successful and deep thinkers through play. So, yes, absolutely, we should be seeing play within first and second grade classrooms. And we know this through developmentally appropriate assessments. We should be gathering data, professionals, educators, administrators, all early childhood focused folks should be gathering information. That can be done in a formative way. We could have checklists, we could have deep questioning where we are writing anecdotal notes. And then we should have summative information where students are allowed voice and choice and how they show what they have learned throughout a unit or a learning experience. Gathering this information should be intentional. It should be efficient. And it should be well planned for and documented. In the documentation, again, it should also be efficient. We should have well established knowledge around the learning progressions of what is expected of our students. So thinking about how they develop socially, emotionally, how their math standards are supposed to grow, where they're supposed to go in language arts. Having that knowledge allows us to document and understand where our students are so that we are able to do the third step and reflect. It is all well and good to gather and document information about our students. However, if that's all that happens, then it's not worth it. We must reflect as early childhood educators, and we do reflect as early childhood educators. We think about, what does this information tell us? What are those next steps for our students so that we are able to scaffold like a bridge, put up scaffolding, give them support in their zone of proximal development so that they are able to continue to make progress on each and every learning progression. Within developmentally appropriate practices, there is inclusivity. All means all. We are serving all of our children, whether they are multi-language learners, whether they have special education needs and have an established IEP or not, whether they are low in socioeconomic status or high, and whether they have had trauma in their lives or not. We as educators and professionals learn about our students, and then we design through universal design for learning, which is a framework to support all learners in a classroom. For representation, we are planning intentionally how to offer information in more than one format so that it is accessible for every child in our classroom. As a professional, I have the ability to give choice and ways to act and express the knowledge in a classroom. The children are able to choose and have a choice of how they can share their knowledge and what materials to use and engagement. So, as an early childhood professional, it is my job to support every child in my classroom to have active engagement in the classroom for every child. If that means that they are able to use sign language, if they're able to use pictures, having labels on words in multiple languages so that vocabulary and concepts are built no matter the home language. It is imperative as a professional that I continue my learning around these important practices. And that goes into being a professional. As an early childhood professional, I have responsibilities. I am here advocating for what I believe is best practice based on research, based on my national organization. I am here to grow knowledge surrounding families' needs, children's needs, and encourage you all to join in supporting early childhood efforts. I also participate in professional learning. It is imperative that as a professional, that early childhood educators engage in intensive job embedded professional learning that is going to grow their knowledge to have impact in the classroom for their students. A high impact strategy for professional learning is to include coaches, instructional coaches. The coaches should be working side by side with teachers in the classroom, implementing best practices that are newly learned to better serve the children in our care. And as a professional, we reflect. Early childhood professionals reflect and should reflect. They should chat with other professionals within their field. They should be reaching out and belonging to their national organization that has free professional learning. They should be joining their local and state organizations that are also supported by the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Reflection is where educators grow. So, what do? I grow young minds. I provide them support in knowing how to manage their emotions so that they are able to learn. I work with families so that they are able to support their children the best they can. I work within my community to grow the knowledge of early childhood opportunities and needs so that our community, our nation can grow in a positive direction and that our children are successful in school and in life.